How do you harness the power of autosuggestion? Welcome to Tea at Taxevity, where you get insights from insiders who make life better, our many clients and friends. I'm Pramod Sharma, the actuary at the Taxevity Insurance Advisory, and when I'm not doing interviews, I'm helping people understand how they can transfer financial risks with insurance. Our guest today is Erich D'Atri-guiran. Welcome, Erich.
Thanks.
What do you do when you're not being interviewed?
My job is that I'm the broker and office manager at Exit Realty Advisors. I help the agents that I work with to become better so that they're providing the best service that they can to their customers.
Okay, and we're talking about a topic that doesn't seem related, but apparently you use this in your business, so it's a good fit. We're talking about autosuggestion, and the first element of that is affirmations. So what is an affirmation? Can you give us an example?
Sure. So an affirmation, put simply, is a positive statement about yourself. It needs to be in the present tense. So an example of an affirmation would be, I love myself unconditionally. What this does is it makes sure that it's in the present tense so that we are assuming the position that we are in that statement. So we don't want to do things like, I will love myself, because what that does is it then assumes that you're not in that position and that one day you might be, but it's not really creating, right? It's almost hoping that it would be. Other than that, other elements to creating a potent affirmation would be to make sure that it has some connection, some emotional feeling for you, so that you're not just saying words, they have some meaning other than the words themselves to you.
Okay, so you need to believe it then.
Yeah, well, you need to believe it, but there are ways to kind of get by that. An affirmation doesn't necessarily need to be currently true. Actually, what an affirmation allows you to do is take disbelief and change it into belief. So, for example, if you had a negative affirmation that's already in your mind, or a negative belief that's in your mind, that you don't believe necessarily, you can take it from that position, that negative belief, to a positive belief about yourself.
Okay, let's first of all understand how affirmations work, because it seems a little hard to believe that they could. What's the theory behind them?
That's a good question. I guess the easiest way to explain it is if you think about the mind in two parts. If you divide the mind into a conscious mind and a subconscious mind, what happens is that your mind perceives everything around you through the five senses that we have. And
that's the conscious mind doing that?
It comes into the mind. Now, it goes through the conscious mind as we perceive it and tries to enter the subconscious mind. Because that's where all the information that we are perceiving is stored. Okay? So it comes in and it goes through both. Now, to get stored in the subconscious mind, between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, there's what we call a filter, basically, that allows good thoughts or true thoughts to go in, and it bounces off thoughts that we perceive as erroneous, basically false.
Okay.
So for it to enter our subconscious mind and then start developing a stronger belief around that idea or that perception, it needs to be repeated. I guess what happens is, for example, we have this negative belief that's in our subconscious mind that has built up a lot of reality for us. And what happens is once we believe something, when we go out through the world, we actually will filter out things that are against that belief and prove ourselves right.
Yeah, confirmation bias.
Even if it's negative, we will go out of our way to only see things that prove ourselves right. So if, for example, you don't like yourself very much, everything that you perceive in the world will be filtered through that belief. It's almost like a pair of sunglasses that you see the world through. And you will continue to gather evidence to make your beliefs true.
Right, there's a traffic jam. Oh, that's just because I'm not a good person.
Yeah, it actually does happen like that. Because if you think, my day's going terribly, your toast is going to burn. You're going to spill your water over in your newspaper. You're going to get in that traffic jam. You're going to be 5 minutes late for work. Everything throughout your day, everything's kind of going to add up and prove that belief right. Okay. So it's just about trying to find a way to, that's what happens when we're in the non-control. Basically, we're just in autopilot. Because our body will automatically just try to prove the beliefs that we have already true. Now, I guess what the affirmation does is it allows us to access a matrix almost of being able to choose what we believe, and those beliefs, once chosen, then affect our feelings, affect our body, our actions, everything else in our life.
I've heard that writing down an affirmation is effective. Can you explain why that would be?
Sure. So the act of actually writing an affirmation down creates a triple impulse for us.
Okay.
The reason that it's so effective, there's other ways to do affirmations. You could say them, you could think them, you could hear them, right? But by writing them, what happens is you have 3 different impulses of the same thing. What happens is when you're writing it down, you have the thought, say, I love myself unconditionally, to continue on with that example. So you think that, I'm going to write that now. And then as you write it, the function of using your body to write is a second impulse. And then the third impulse is that as you're writing those words, you're then reading them back to yourself. So you have a kind of like a triple impulse of the same thing, and it really combines them all into the mind and the body. The other strong thing about writing an affirmation is when you have these impulses, for example, where we have something that we don't necessarily believe, we already have a strong negative belief in our subconscious mind. To start altering that and creating a good positive belief around the same subject, what happens is when we start to, like I said, we automatically filter out the beliefs that would prove ourselves wrong. Right? Even if it's in our best interest, it'll deny that. So to start actively creating a counter belief to that, a positive belief in this case, what we need to do is somehow bypass that filter. And when you write an affirmation, what happens is you're allowing it into the subconscious mind by piggybacking it, so to say, on the automatic pattern that's in the subconscious mind of literacy.
Okay.
Yeah. So instead of it saying, I don't understand that, that's against my negative belief, it must not be true, bouncing it off, it goes, oh, well, he's writing it, it must be true. Why would he write something about it? It doesn't make sense, right? So the literacy program and the reading program, which is part of the literacy program, and all of that combines to create that impulse, okay? And the impulse gets planted in the subconscious mind, it gets stored there. And through repetition, by doing this over and over, spaced repetition is best, we create a stronger and stronger and stronger neural pathway, which then becomes an optional route, so to say, to the counter belief, which would be the negative. So it's important that if we're in a good physiological state, that we work on good, strong other beliefs to counterbalance those, so that when we go to a time of stress, we don't automatically choose the negative belief because our positive belief has become stronger.
It sounds like we're building a habit, and if we build it well, then it will become a lasting habit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very true, right? Because if we don't build the counter belief, if we don't create a habit, when it comes down to stress, we automatically resort to our habits, basically, because our body, we're not consciously thinking about what we're doing. Right. We go into flight mode. And when we're in flight mode, we're not thinking about the automatic processes. We're thinking about whatever we're scared about or whatever we're worried about, which is probably not good for us. But if we don't have strong positive patterns or habits in our life, we'll revert to whatever works. And even if whatever works isn't the best for us, that's what we go to.
When we're using affirmations, does our state of mind make a difference?
It does. I would say that it's actually one of the most important things that decides between how you would use the principle of autosuggestion. There are 2 that I would suggest, and they're basically a flip switch for whether you're in a positive physiological state or a negative physiological state. If you're in a positive way, in a positive being, in a state where you're optimistic and pretty happy about life, that's the time that we can use affirmations. That's the time that we can build those optional detours, optional neural pathways in our mind to allow us to, when we go into a state of stress or negativity, we automatically choose the better path, because it's now the stronger belief, it's a stronger habit than the now diminishing negative belief, right?
Okay. But if I'm in a down state, it would seem to me that I need the affirmation more, but it just wouldn't be as effective at that point.
Well, see, what happens when you're in this negative state is your body is working harder almost to prove what you have right. You're really grasping onto what you got.
Okay.
Okay, so that negative belief then, it's got this challenge of, okay, well, for example, that I love myself unconditionally, but really I don't love myself, and all this evidence is showing up to me and all this kind of thing. So what happens is you don't really help yourself by doing that.
Okay.
The more effective use, it's not to say that it wouldn't help you, but it's more to say that in the same amount of time you could do something that's more effective at that point. If you imagine a scale basically from -10 to 10, where -10 is you have total disbelief in this idea, and 10 is you have total belief in it. When you're on that below zero side in that negative state of life, when you're trying to change that emotion, there's bigger changes that you have that are available to you. There's bigger things that you can do with your life that will have a large impact on what you can do, basically. So the effective use of your time at that point, when you're in that negative physiological state, is to ask yourself effective questions. So an effective question example would just be taking whatever the affirmation would be and putting a how in front of it. It's pretty simple, actually. So if you had that...
An example would help us.
Yeah, so if you had that affirmation of I love myself unconditionally, then you just take that question, put a how, or take that statement and put a how in front of it. So you say, how can I love myself unconditionally? Or how can I love myself more? Anything that allows your mind, your subconscious mind, to start answering these questions. It's important not to try to force yourself to answer it, because a lot of the time these effective questions the answer will just come to you. Like, you'll just be going about your day and all of a sudden it'll hit you.
Yeah, that's what I find with questions is you ask yourself a question and then it's like your subconscious mind is busy working on it during the day or maybe overnight or maybe for a couple of days. Then all of a sudden you get an idea and you don't even know how because it's not connected to what you were doing.
Yeah. See, that's actually really true. It's funny because a lot of the world's greatest inventors have found that by asking them, because they're so focused on how can I make this work, how can I do this, a lot of their ideas come to them when they're not even working on it. Like, they've gone away from their work. They're not pushing it and forcing it to happen. They've taken an hour to nap or relax or meditate or whatever, and all of a sudden it's coming to them, right? All of a sudden it just kind of comes to them. So it's really cool if you just let it go and not force it. It will eventually just come to you when it's necessary.
Is there a best time of day for affirmations?
Best time of day is right when you wake up, or right before you go to bed. The reason for that is that you're in the most relaxed state. Why that's important is just that when you're relaxed, your mind is most impressionable. Okay, so that allows those affirmations to go directly in. It really allows them to be put into your subconscious mind. When we're already, halfway through the day and then trying to affirm, our mind is already busy and kind of full of all these like jittering thoughts of all the stress that's going on in your day, and you're not really able to focus on the one thing. It's generally a great time for anything that you want to learn or practice or do anything is right early in the morning, because you're very impressionable at that time.
Yeah, the only problem is if you're not a morning person.
Yeah. So the other option, I guess, is at night as well. It's just before you're going to bed kind of thing, trying to find a place of peace before you get into it. Try to just calm down, relax, and get into that mental state where you're not still stressing about what might go on tomorrow, what happened today. You just need to relax a little bit and then go into the affirmations. But yeah, right before bed is a good time as well if you're not so much a morning person.
Yeah, I find evenings work better that way.
Yeah.
So there is some hope for me. How much time should we spend doing affirmations in a given day?
That's a good question. And it's funny, you can answer it almost the same way when people ask, what's a good time to exercise or how much time should I exercise? It's really just about whatever you will do. The amount that you'll do is the best time. Because if you set a goal of doing an hour of affirmations, and this is like the first time that you're ever doing something like this, most likely you're not going to keep up to that commitment. I think one of the strongest things that is important about affirmations is setting a commitment to yourself to do this constantly. Do it every morning or every night, and just do it every single day for at least a month until you build that habit of affirming in kind of its habitception, where you're creating a habit to build other habits within your mind.
Okay, and what is it that you like about affirmations?
The ability to choose what I create with my life. The concept of affirmations is just that your thoughts create and control everything that you're going to do. Because everything that you've achieved up to this point has initially started with a thought in your mind. Everything that you've accomplished and achieved, right? So if my thoughts determine my outcomes later on in life or tomorrow or whenever, right? If I can focus on and create and deliberately choose good thoughts over bad thoughts, positive thoughts over negative thoughts, creative over destructive, in any way, the thoughts that come from love instead of fear, which is a huge concept, right? Because it's kind of divided in that way, like you can have love or hate, the love comes from love and the hate comes from the fear side of things. You can have joy or fear or faith or disbelief or doubt, and they always come from this love or fear topic. Just trying to fill my life, I guess, with more of the positive love affecting thoughts and feelings, I guess, really.
Okay, earlier you mentioned the importance of effective questions. Can you tell us a little more about what makes a question effective?
Sure. So when you're asking an effective question, like I said, it's easy to take an affirmation that you know and turn it into an effective question by asking how in front of it. What you don't want to do, just so that you know, is that you don't want to say things like why. Because what happens when you do why is you ask a question with why in front of it and you'll get almost reasons to be negative.
You almost become judgmental. So why don't I love myself? Well, okay, you're this way or that way. Well, okay, so how does that help me? What do I do next?
Yeah, it doesn't really move you forward, exactly. Whereas these questions, whenever you put how in front of it, what tends to happen is you create plans for yourself. You create a path for yourself to then follow to achieve or to make that change in your life. So I would say it's once again important to be positive. As with the affirmations, it's very important to be positive with the effective questions, to be present tense still. So how can I do this? But the other thing that you want to avoid is to not ask an effective question that contains the negative. And an example of that might be like if you're struggling with something, if you have a disbelief that you're trying to approach with these effective questions, right? For example, you want to do something like lose weight, okay? You want to lose weight, but you have this negative disbelief like, my body is naturally overweight. Like you have this negative belief, you have this belief that just
I have big bones.
I have big bones, or this is just who I am and there's nothing that I can do about it, right? If you have this belief, for example, that you couldn't live without junk food or something like that, where it's not a positive belief. If you ask a how question like, how can I not eat junk food? It contains the problem within the question. Whereas a better example for that question would be, how can I eat healthier food?
Okay.
So it's about moving forward. It's about asking questions that give you progress, that give you forward-thinking action, rather than anti-negative thinking action, basically. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's build on that example that you were using. Say the goal is to lose weight. How would we come up with an effective affirmation for that, or affirmations?
So if you wanted to lose weight, I guess the goal, you're starting with a goal. The goal would not be, I want to lose this many pounds. Instead, I would say, have a end result in mind. Start with the end in mind. So instead of saying, I'm at 150 pounds and I want to get to 140 pounds, it's, I want to lose 10 pounds. It's, I want to get to 140 pounds.
Okay.
Okay. So,
because I've heard that if you use the word lose, then your body or your brain says, well, I don't want to lose anything. I want to keep everything that's mine.
Yeah. If you lose it, you're going to find it again.
Yes.
So the better goal would be to be 140 pounds, or I am 140 pounds on September 2015, for example.
Okay, so it's good to have a target date also then.
Yeah, so if you want to do a little bit more research into that, you could look up something called SMART goals is an avenue that you could look into, specific and timely, right? So setting a goal simply though is specific, present tense once again, so it's I am 140 pounds on September
rather
2015.
than I will be.
Yeah, instead of I will be, because I will be, you're not assuming that position of currentness.
You can't visualize what I will be, but you can say, like, you can visualize I am.
Yeah, it puts you in the assumptive state that you already are, and then your body works towards creating. It's almost like I said before, right? When your belief is that you are something, everything that you experience and perceive gets brought in when it's proving yourself right. So everything that you do and everything that you perceive in life is going to start trying to prove that I'm 140 pounds belief right.
And then would the idea be to repeat this affirmation every day?
In the case of that, I think what would happen is you would start to, your goal would be I am 150 pounds by September 15.
Or 140 pounds.
Sure, I'm 140 pounds by September 15. What you would have is some limiting beliefs that might come up around it.
Okay.
Okay. Even as simple as I can't do this. Okay. And when you say, when you catch yourself thinking those, that's the stuff that you need to affirm against, because really and truly those are the things that are causing the inability to lose the weight, is these core beliefs, or the disrupting beliefs, the negative and limiting beliefs that you have around the subject that you're trying to improve on.
But then what do you do there? So if someone says, hey, I can't lose the weight, because if I could have lost the weight, I already would have, then how do they fix that? So
in the example of, I just can't do this, you would take that basically negative affirmation and turn it into a positive affirmation.
I can do this.
I can do this. And you would write that every morning. So you would say, I can do this. I am 140 pounds by September 2015. I enjoy eating healthy food, right? Because another one might be like, I just don't enjoy eating healthy food. Or I just don't enjoy exercising. Or I don't like just drinking water. I like to have Gatorade or something like that.
Yes.
All of those things can be turned into the now positive belief. I enjoy drinking water and keep well hydrated by doing so. That's an example, right? You just turn whatever it is into a positive belief and then affirm that every morning.
Okay, and it probably takes a while before you start seeing results.
Yeah, I think one of the coolest things that you could do for somebody that's really a little bit more skeptical about this is to figure out what kind of affirmations you want to start doing. Start with, say, 15, 20, 30 affirmations at the least, I would say, that you were going to do every morning. It'll probably take you no more than 5 minutes, honestly. And if you take those 30 affirmations and write them all out and leave a little bit of space on the left, and then rate yourself from 1 to 10 about how true that belief is about you right now. Okay? Save that one page, write this every day for 30 days, say. Okay, give yourself a month challenge, right? And for a month, just write them every single morning, or if you're not a morning person, you can do it at night just before you go to bed. Give yourself some space to get away from, the TV that you were watching, or the conversations you were having, or whatever that is. Remove yourself, relax, just do this, and write those 30 affirmations. And in 30 days, go back and write those 30 down again, and then say, okay, well, score myself. And then you can see, well, I was a 6 then, and now I'm a 7, or now I'm an 8, and now I'm a 9. Okay, so you can really, for somebody that is a little bit more skeptical about this and wants to see this actually change, you can track yourself. You can actually see how you would rate yourself.
Okay, I like analytics, so that makes a lot of sense to me. Graphs and numbers and ranges. Interesting. What's your key message for people watching today?
I think the message for me is just that when I heard about this, when I found out about this, I was a little bit upset that I hadn't found out about it before.
Oh, okay.
That I hadn't been doing this, because here I was meeting these incredibly successful people that were attributing their success to affirming. They were saying, if only I'd started this earlier. And I'm in this position where I'm 20 years old, and I already feel that a little bit, because, what if I was doing this from 0 to 7 when I'm super, super impressionable, right? If I can give one message, I guess, to people, is just that I would implore them to give this a try, give this a shot, and see that it can make the change for you, because really your thoughts affect your feelings, and your feelings affect your actions. And like I said, everything that you've accomplished today is a result of your thoughts. So if this is one way for you to change your beliefs, try it out.
What's the best way for people to reach you?
You can reach me on my email or on my cell phone. Email is erichd@gmail.com. Phone number is 416-560-4353. Yeah, just give me a shout. I'd be interested in helping anybody else that wanted to find out more about this, or has a little bit more specific questions, to give them some more information on it.
That sounds terrific, and you've already helped people today. Thanks very much for dropping by.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us for Tea at Taxevity. The Taxevity Insurance Advisory helps you understand insurance and bridges gaps in your coverage. There's no premium for peace of mind. How healthy is your insurance?